There was a time when Honda wasn't just another member of the Big Four. They weren't just a reliable, sensible, middle-of-the-road brand. They were the brand. They were the benchmark for performance, ambition, and creative drive. They were different than everything else out there, and they were the ones that pushed the boundaries of what a motorcycle could be, and everyone else had to scramble to keep up. In the 80s and 90s, Honda gave us the RC30 and the RC45, which were V4-powered race-bred machines that dominated the world stage. They gave us the RC51, a V-twin superbike built for the express purpose of dethroning Ducati in world superbike racing. They gave us the absolutely insane NR750, a motorcycle with oval pistons and 32 valves, with the intention of mimicking a V8 engine with just half the cylinders. And if that wasn't enough, they gave us production turbo bikes, inline-six engines, longitudinal V-twins, and countless other experiments that were as ambitious as they were groundbreaking. Honda's got a lot to be proud of, and it's kind of crazy when you think back to that moment. But fast forward to today, and things look really different. Walk into a Honda dealership now, and the showroom floor is filled with 500cc commuter bikes, mini bikes, sensible scooters, and safe, pedestrian parallel twins designed for mass appeal and approachability. They're solid, they're well made, but when compared to the days that Honda defined the cutting edge, it all feels a little underwhelming. So how exactly did this happen? How did Honda go from being the most exciting, innovative motorcycle company in the world to one that's known for playing it pretty darn safe? Let's talk about it today. To understand how far Honda has shifted, we need to revisit the era when they were at their peak in the 80s and 90s. Honda was at their most fearless. This was the company that believed world-class engineering could solve anything, that no design was too complicated and no challenge too great. Tariffs? We'll just make turbo bikes and build a factory in Ohio. Easy. I mean, it was kind of 1980s Japan. They were seemingly unstoppable. Do you guys remember in Back to the Future when he goes to 2015 that the whole world is like taken over by Japan? They literally thought that was gonna happen.
McFly!
Fujitsu-san, konnichiwa!
McFly! I was monitoring that scan you just interfaced. You are terminated!
Terminated? No! No!
If you want to think about Honda at their best, the RC30 is a great place to start. This bike was also known as the VFR 750R. It was first released in 1987, and it was no ordinary sport bike. It was a homologation special built so that Honda could go racing in the new World Superbike Championship. At its heart was a 748cc V4 engine with gear-driven cams, titanium connecting rods, and a redline north of 12,000 RPM. It was built to win races, and that's just what it did. Most famously under Fred Merkel, who won the first two WSBK championships in 1988 and 1989. Honda wasn't afraid to go even further into the absurd. In 1992, they unveiled the NR750, a machine that cost around $50,000 when new, which in today's money is over $100,000. I think it's fair to say that this concept is completely foreign to Honda's current conservative attitude towards motorcycling. The NR was a result of Honda's culture at that time. It wasn't just about winning races or outselling competitors. It was about proving what Honda's engineers could do if you gave them free rein. The NR had oval pistons, allowing each cylinder to use 8 valves and 2 connecting rods. It was essentially a V8 disguised as a V4. And for those in the know, remember that the esteemed Ducati 916 actually borrowed many design elements from the NR750. Ducati copying Honda? That sounds like such a foreign concept today, but this is just how different the culture was 30 years ago. Nowadays, Honda's copying Ducati in MotoGP. It's funny how history comes around like that. When Honda launched the original 1992 Fireblade, it was nothing short of a sport bike revolution. Designed by Tadao Baba, the CBR 900RR wasn't just another big bore sport bike. It totally redefined the concept of performance. Instead of just chasing raw horsepower like the heavy leader bikes of the era, Honda focused on weight savings, clever engineering, and razor-sharp handling. At just 408 pounds dry, the Fireblade tipped the scales closer to a 600cc than a 1000cc machine, yet it delivered blistering superbike performance. I mean, that weight is still impressive today. That balance of lightweight agility and serious power made it an instant legend, proving that handling, not brute force, was the future of sport bikes. It really set the tone for everything that came after it. Then came the RC45, or the RVF 750 in 1994. On paper, it looked like a successor to the RC30, but in many ways, it was totally different. It's a completely different animal. The RC45 had a fuel-injected V4, single-sided swing arm, and advanced electronics for its time. It didn't enjoy the same level of dominance as the RC30, but it showed how committed Honda was to refining the V4 platform. So, in the early 90s, Honda was developing V4, inline-4, and oval piston engines simultaneously. The modern rider cannot comprehend that degree of mechanical innovation. It's like giving a Carolina Reaper hot pepper to a Victorian peasant child. Their brain's just going to explode. And it wasn't just superbikes that Honda was pushing in the new exciting directions. They were experimenting across the board. The CBX 1000, which came out in the late 70s, was a technical marvel in its own right. The CX 500 Turbo and CX 650 Turbo were among the first production turbocharged motorcycles. Even the Goldwing, with its flat 4 and later flat 6 boxer engine, was redefining what long-distance touring could look like. This was the Honda mindset. Innovation first, sales second, and maybe race wins zero. But they were willing to spend money on projects that might not have mass appeal because the payoff was prestige, dominance, and a reputation for engineering brilliance. You can't talk about Honda and not talk about racing. Racing wasn't just a hobby for Honda, it was part of their corporate DNA. Soichiro himself believed that racing was essential to improving their products, and the mindset carried through the 20th century. The 80s saw Honda dominate Grand Prix racing with machines like the NS500, a V3 two-stroke that toppled Yamaha and Suzuki in the early years of the decade. Later came the NSR 500, a V4 two-stroke that defined the 500cc era. Riders like Freddie Spencer, Wayne Gardner, Mick Doohan, they all cemented Honda's reputation as the team to beat. I mean, newer watchers of MotoGP might not realize how significant it is to not see a Repsol livery Honda leading the pack, but it's still really weird to not see it nowadays. That's been a defining feature of motorcycle racing for the last 40 years. In World Superbike, the RC30 and later the RC51 put Honda on top of the podium. The RC51 in particular deserves a special mention. It was released in 2000, it was powered by a 999cc liquid-cooled V-twin built specifically to counter Ducati's dominance in WSBK. And it worked. Colin Edwards rode it to 2 world championships, famously battling Troy Bayliss and Ducati tooth and nail. This racing culture wasn't separate from Honda's production bikes, it was the engine driving them forward. The RC series, the CBR Fireblade, even the VFR line, all of these bikes carried tech and lessons straight from the track. If you bought a Honda in the 80s or the 90s, you were buying into that racing DNA. But less than 10 years into the new millennium, the world changed in a very real way. Many of you weren't even alive when this happened, but it was a really big deal, and it seems like every time I make videos historically talking about motorcycles, it all comes back to the 2008 global financial crisis. And it hit every industry hard. Motorcycles were no exception. Big, expensive, high-performance superbikes suddenly weren't selling. People who might have stretched their budget for a sport bike tightened their belts. Commuter bikes and practical scooters stayed afloat, but the bleeding-edge exotics became way harder to justify. Honda, being a massive global company shipping something to the tune of 20 million units a year, was hit in a particular way. They weren't just making bikes, they were making cars, power equipment, marine engines, all sorts of stuff. The company's survival depended on steady, predictable profits to ride the tides and waves of the 2008 crash. Motorcycles were only a slice of their business, and unlike cars, the motorcycle division couldn't afford to throw money at wild experiments anymore. So Honda shifted. The days of the NR750 were gone. Instead, they pivoted towards safe, mass appeal designs that could sell consistently worldwide. Bikes that were approachable for beginners, practical for commuters, and affordable for everyone. I mean, that's also part of Honda's DNA if you think about it, right? The nice campaign, getting more people to ride, you're seeing a bit of a theme here. This shift became very clear in the 2010s. Instead of crazy moonshot projects, Honda introduced machines that felt more like committee decisions than engineering passion projects. Take the infamous DN01, which was released in 2008. Honda marketed it as a crossover motorcycle. It's a little cringe. It was part cruiser, part scooter, part sport bike, and all dorky. Go ahead, fight me, come on. It had futuristic styling, an automatic CVT transmission, and shaft drive. On paper, I'm sure it sounded somewhat promising to the Honda boardroom. In reality, it was heavy, underpowered, and really confused about its identity, and not in a cool 2025 sort of way. It flopped, and it showed that Honda's mindset was heading towards practicality over passion. Then came the CTX 700 in 2014. This was Honda's attempt to lure in new riders who might otherwise be intimidated by motorcycles. It had a low seat height, relaxed ergos, and the same parallel twin engine from the NC 700 series. It was very comfortable, very easy to ride, but hardly inspiring. For many enthusiasts, it felt like Honda had abandoned performance entirely. And speaking of the NC 700 and later NC 750, these bikes epitomized Honda's new direction. With their frunk storage compartments where the fuel tank should be, their low revving 180-degree parallel twin engines designed more for fuel economy than excitement, and their availability with the all-important DCT automatic transmissions, they were practical to a fault. They made sense for commuters, for pedestrian riders, or for someone just looking to get around. But for riders looking for performance or character, they came across as incredibly bland and forgettable. The CB500 series, launched in 2013, continued the trend. Honda's been putting this 471cc twin in everything over the last decade. The CB500R naked bike, the CBR500R sport bike, and the CB500X adventure touring thing, the Rebel, the SLC 500, they're all using that same parallel twin engine and core chassis. This modular approach is very efficient, affordable, and accessible, but it also stripped away the individuality that had defined Honda's earlier machines. But to be fair, Honda's strategy works. These bikes sell really well. But for enthusiasts who remembered the RC30 or the CBX, kind of felt like Honda had lost their way and their soul. So where does that leave us today? Honda's current lineup reflects exactly what their priorities are. Globally, they want mass appeal and approachability. They want bikes they can sell in high numbers in markets from Tokyo to London to Sao Paulo, all the way to here in Austin, Texas. That means middleweight parallel twins, practical scooters, and accessible entry-level machines. And that does a lot for the community and the industry, right? We want more people to get started riding, and maybe everybody's starter bike is a Honda, and then move on to more exciting stuff later on. The NC 750 still soldiers on with its frunk filled proudly. Honda's 500 series continues to be omnipresent. Adventure bikes like the Africa Twin remain popular, but even that machine is more conservative compared to rivals from KTM or BMW. One of the more notable recent launches has been the 2025 CB1000 Hornet SP. At first glance, it looks like a return to form. A leader-class naked bike with fully adjustable Olin suspension, Brembo Stylema brakes, a quick shifter, and aggressive styling. The price is shockingly low at $11,000, making it one of the best values in the segment. But you look a little closer and the engine isn't new. It's derived from a 2017 CBR 1000RR, detuned and repurposed. The frame and chassis components are borrowed from existing models. Even the electronics package is familiar. Honda's brilliance here isn't in bold innovation, but in really smart cost cutting and packaging. The Hornet SP is exciting, yes, but it's exciting because it's affordable, not because it's revolutionary. And I'm not saying it needs to be, but I'm just calling a spade a spade. This encapsulates modern Honda. They're not chasing technological moonshots, they're chasing stability. They're building good, reliable motorcycles that appeal to a wide audience, but rarely take risks. For a company that once defined motorcycle innovation, that kind of feels like a step down. But maybe, just maybe, Honda isn't done surprising us yet. In late 2024, Honda teased a new engine platform, a V3 with forced induction. That's right, not a V-twin, not a V4, but a V3. paired with an electrically driven turbocharger, or supercharger, or whatever the hell an e-compressor is. The engine design proves to be compact, narrow, and reminiscent of the NS500 race bike from the 1980s. Do you think somebody at Honda pulled those old designs from the shelf and started taking a look, just blowing off the dust on them and thinking about them a little bit? I think so. The electric supercharger means instant boost without lag, high torque delivery, and the potential for very exciting performance without the complexity of an intercooler, and some pretty cool sounds coming out of this thing. That's exactly the kind of left field innovation Honda used to be known for. It's too early to tell what form this engine will take in a production bike. It could be a middleweight street fighter, maybe a supermoto, or even an adventure bike. But the fact that Honda is experimenting with this platform is a sign that the old spark isn't completely gone. And this interesting experiment from Honda comes at a crucial time in motorcycling. New players like CF Moto are rising quickly, building affordable yet exciting motorcycles that are forcing the established brands to respond. Honda may be realizing that value and innovation don't have to be mutually exclusive, that you can build something affordable and inspiring at the same time. If anyone can do it, Honda can. The other point I wanted to make is that Honda is very critically investing in different transmission options, different gearbox options. Honda's going after innovation in a very different way than a lot of people. I mean, look at the e-clutch system, the DCT investments, and now everyone else is following suit with some sort of automatic trim. I mean, imagine a V3 boosted Honda with e-clutch. That's kind of an inconceivable motorcycle from 10 or 15 years ago. So, did Honda really fall off? Well, in many ways, yeah, they went from being the most daring, innovative motorcycle manufacturer in the world to being one of the most conservative. They traded in oval pistons and V4 race replicas for parallel twin commuters and mini bikes. They prioritized accessibility and global sales over pushing the boundaries of performance. But it's not all doom and gloom. Honda still builds solid, reliable bikes, and their strategy has kept them successful in a pretty challenging time and market. With projects like the supercharged V3, there's reason to hope we might see flashes of the old Honda spirit return. For now though, if you want a taste of the fearless, groundbreaking Honda of the past, you'll have to look backwards to the RC30, RC51, the NR750, the Fireblade, and all the other icons that remind us of what Honda once was. Because Honda motorcycles did fall off big time, but maybe, just maybe, they're getting ready to climb again. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of today's video. What do you think? Is this Honda's crash out? Will the new V3 ignite the culture and innovation once again? Or will the impending economic uncertainty and global depression force Honda to remain conservative going forward? I think there's two paths here, boys. Either we get fully autonomous luxury gay space communism with boosted V3 Hondas and crazy ass engines, or we're all gonna be forced to ride Groms and rent everything until we die. Let me know what you think. Thanks again for watching. I will see you later. Bye-bye. Oh yeah, this is a Janus. Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. Don't worry.